right, next up we have Santi with practical AWS Antiforensics. Thank you.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm Santi. I'm a cloud security engineer. I'm really happy to be here. I really like the Balkans. I have been presenting in Croatia, in Slovenia. This is my first time in Serbia. I heard about the conference because a guy in Slovenia told me, you need to come to BalCCon, you need to come to BalCCon. And I'm here. I'm from Argentina. We have a really nice country, an interesting country if you don't live there, because politics and meat and football, so I think we have a lot in common. And also I came along, so if you're around and want to chat or want to know a little bit more about my country, about my culture, please reach me. And I'm ready to make a trade with you as I came along. I don't have anything to take me photos, so if you reach me with a photo, I can buy you a beer. I think it's a nice deal, right? So let's start. I have only 25 minutes to discuss a little bit about how we can do anti-forensics in AWS. How many of you work with AWS right now? Great, that's awesome. How many of you are offensive security engineers or do offensive stuff? And how many of you do defensive stuff? Great. So we all know that the bread and butter to do defensive security or what you need to evade when you're attacking is CloudTrail, right? CloudTrail and Garduti are the two main stuff that the security engineers have to do forensic. And these are the two components that we are going to be attacking today. The main idea is like, we have like this shared responsibility model in AWS where a lot of stuff that we can do in a defensive manner is delegated into AWS, and we are taking advantage of that supply chain attack that we can achieve, breaking into the small pieces that compound the strategy that we need to apply to detect attacks or to investigate an attack after it happens. So what we are going to do, we are going to work with this slide. This is the most important slide. Here, you are going to be able to see the delays that exist between a log or an event, a log in CloudTrail, an API call log that is generated in CloudTrail, the delay it takes for it to reach the SIEM, that based on how we apply the integration, we can have up to 25 minutes in between. We execute an attack and the engineers get the log in the SIEM. So we are going to work in those 25 minutes to stop that log to reach the SIEM so we can work in a covert manner. The other tool is Garduti. Garduti has a faster time between it detects something. Garduti is going to be able to correlate logs from API calls, DNS, or whatever, to generate alerts. Defensive teams cannot build alerts in Garduti. They need to use the alerts that are already set by AWS. So, but the nice thing about this is like it's a one-button enabled tool. So every or almost every tenant in AWS has Garduti enabled. And we also need to understand how to bypass it and what alerts and what behaviors triggers those alarms. But it's not complete. Most defensive strategies are built based on Garduti and another detection controls compensating what Garduti is not looking for in the SIEM. So yeah, there are different ways of implement this, but the recommended way always is like getting the CloudTrail log being shipped to an S3 bucket and in different ways, get that log from the S3 bucket. These are all the logs that a defensive team needs to enable in AWS. It's not for you to read, it's for you to understand that most of the logs in AWS are not enabled by default. ALB logs, API gateway, Lambda CloudWatch logs, all of those require custom integrations, and the most difficult part from a security operation team is like to get those normalized and parsed in the SIEM. So as that's a lot of work, most companies don't do that. Okay, let's start with anti-forensics. What's the objective of anti-forensics is to disrupt the forensics exercise or the detection strategy. We are going to be able to tamper what the response team is going to be looking for without them knowing, right? And we're going to start with CloudTrail. This is the part of the diagram that I'm going to explain to you. The idea is to cover the theory super fast and go to a live demo. As I was telling you, these are the delays that we can see when we are shipping CloudTrail logs to a SIEM. I'm using Datadog as an example because I think it's one of the most mature log collection tools that are integrated in AWS. And we're going to work with the S3 bucket specifically, because if we try to attack directly CloudTrail, Garduti is going to catch us, because Garduti is always monitoring CloudTrail API calls, but they are not monitoring as much S3 bucket calls. And it's common for the defensive team to implement detection rules for stop detector from every API call that affects directly the security tool that we are using. This is the diagram that I'm going to try to achieve. So within the bucket, I'm going to compromise the bucket policy. This is something that is super fun about how AWS works, because in AWS, you as user need to have permissions to execute API calls against a resource. But also, some resources needs to allow you to execute API calls against it itself. So if I change the resource policy, preventing CloudTrail to save logs in the S3 bucket, the log is not going to be generated. And that's something that is normal in development life cycles. It's common for us to be changing resource policies, so it's not going to be tracked as is. What we're going to look is the resource in the policy. The resource, as you can see, it says it allows CloudTrail to save logs in the S3 bucket. And we're going to change it to something like this, that is allows Garduti to save logs into the S3 bucket. But as the entity that is going to be trying to save object is CloudTrail, it's not Garduti, CloudTrail is not going to be able to do that. Are you following me? Great. The thing with this is why I use Garduti? Because the principal needs to be a valid resource. I cannot say whatever, a random string. That resource needs to be valid for the bucket, for the policy to be able to be applied. But the problem with this type of compromise is that CloudTrail has an inbuilt detection rule that is going to trigger that is not able to ship logs to the bucket. If they cannot ship logs to the bucket, they are going to notice like this. This can be a problem, right? And also, if we stop all the logs to arrive to the SIEM, most SIEM have also alerts that are saying, I'm not receiving logs from this source for 2 days. And that's something that also can make the bell ring, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to change the approach, and we're going to apply a deny to a specific path in the bucket. For you that don't know, CloudTrail saves the logs in folders, and they have specific folders for regions. So if we apply a deny into a folder that we know that we can attack, like for example, the Brazil region, logs from North Virginia are going to be stored, but logs from Brazil are not. So if I apply this, the CloudTrail is not going to be yelling anything. The logs are going to be stored, but in other regions and not in Brazil. And if the defensive team is monitoring USS1 or is monitoring whatever with their SIEM, they are going to still receiving logs from Virginia, that is the most noisy region. And also, it allows me to work in a completely different region, because AWS has this other hard thing to monitor that is most services are regional. So if I stop CloudTrail for logging in Brazil, if I stop Garduti for working in Brazil, and the company is not monitoring heavily that part, I can use Brazil to do whatever I want, to mine crypto, to persist, to launch a ransomware. That can be my land, where I can land, right? Okay, let's continue with Garduti. The Garduti integration is a little bit more easier. Most of the time, it works like this. They are shipping the events to the theme using CloudWatch. CloudWatch is like a faster integration. It has only 5 minutes of the delay, so we need to work super fast to disrupt Garduti. And this is how the dashboard looks like, and it gives you a lot of information. Most of the time it generates a lot of noise, so we have also in favor that most of the time are false positives, and the security teams are already fighting with Garduti false positives. But we're going to use this other integration, because another way of using Garduti is like triggering the click to a channel, so we can start our detection process. I'm using Discord, but it could be Jira, PagerDuty, whatever. The important part here is that it always needs a Lambda function to trigger the push notification, and we also need something that is going to ship the event to the Lambda. That's event bridge, and we are going to tackle event bridge. The event bridge rule looks like this. What it says is like wherever there is a Garduti finding in the bus, trigger an alert. So it's super easy. And what can we do? We can work with that rule to make it more specific. So I can apply a clause that says if there is an Garduti finding that is not coming from my IP, trigger an alert. So with this approach, any other IPs or any other attacks is going to ship events to Garduti. So whatever other attacker is in the cloud environment is going to trigger Garduti. If anybody tries to execute a test of Garduti, it's going to work. But not if it's coming from my IP, from my VPS. So I'm only doing antiforensics without my source. So that's a little bit more like specific and difficult to catch. If we want to do something more like broader, we can disable the rule, and that would also make the trick, but they can notice that for some time they are not getting events from Garduti, so that can also be a problem. For the sake of time, we are going to use this technique in the demo, but the idea is like you can interchange these techniques to completely disable the security detection of the victim, right? The most important thing is like you need to have permissions to do this stuff. So the difficult part to achieve is, but it's not difficult because when you try this in real scenarios, it's really common to find like root access credentials in whatever places you want. But I'm assuming I'm having permissions. Talking about privilege escalation could be another different talk. So take in mind that if you have done correctly your least privilege access with your IAM users and roles, this is not possible to do, okay? Okay, I have 10 minutes. So the idea is this. I have Datadog. This is a live Datadog CM integration. As you can see here, we have like 1 minute update. So this is ingesting CloudTrail in Datadog. And we have all the integrations in here. I have like, this is the Lambda function that triggers events from Datadog. I could also work with the Lambda if I want, if I only have access to this. Look at this. The Lambda function has like an environment variable that triggers the Datadog API key that points to an ARN that is a secrets manager ARN. That's a secure path, right? So I cannot see the Datadog API key because I don't have access to secrets manager. But I can change the environment variables, changing the ARN, and the Lambda is going to fail because they cannot retrieve the secret from the environment variable anymore. I have also the CloudTrail here, and the trick that we need to do it to be fast, we need to change the policy for all the logs here, then disable Garduti, then change the policy for Brazil. So the time that they are not getting logs from all the region is only like 1 minute, right? So what we're going to do, as you can see here, there is the IAM policy. I have my machete in here to apply the deny. So we are going to edit the policy. And we are going to, JSON. Okay, so we're going to apply a deny to every CloudTrail. Look that I'm also adding the CloudTrail digest. Do you know what the CloudTrail digest is? It's a file that is going to be, it's like a hash file of the logs that I'm shipping to the bucket. So the defensive team use that digest to check if their logs are complete. So if I also stop the digest to be generated whenever I check the completeness of the log, it's going to be okay because there is no new digest to monitor new logs. So the log is always the try the anti-tampering technique is also going to be like disabled. So now that I stop CloudTrail events to be generated, I need to go to the Discord rule notification that I have for Garduti, that is here, and I'm going to disable it, only for the presentation. So now, in my Discord channel, no matter whatever I do, I'm not getting the notification. The log is, the event in Garduti is going to be generated, but it's not going to be arriving to my Discord notification. We are not going to receive anything more in here, right? But the most important thing that we need to understand is how can we understand how the integration works, right? I have this Vive code Python script that I can share with you afterwards. What it does is like it enumerates all the components of detection strategy that can be part of the AWS environment. So running this script is going to tell me, for example, that Garduti is enabled, what is the detector ID, what event breach rules trigger CloudTrail events, what event breach rules trigger Garduti, for example. If there is CloudTrail shipping logs to S3, so we can, before launching the attack, we can understand which other mechanism can be triggering what we are disabling, right? So now I disable Garduti. If I go to Datadog and I try to look for the past 15 minutes, I should see that all the logs stop coming, right? We stop receiving logs from the whole CloudTrail tenant. So now that I disable Garduti, I want to change the policy again only to monitor everything but Brazil. So I'm changing the policy again. This can be easily automated, but I'm doing it manually because if not, it's hard to see, and for me, it's important to understand what things can be done manually before automating, right? So with this approach, now when new logs start to come, this is going to populate. CloudTrail is going to populate the S3 bucket, and we are going to be able to receive the new logs. If we go to the bucket, and I look to AWS log, this is how they are stored. As you can see here, we have CloudTrail. We can go to SE is 1, and we are going to see that the last log that is coming is going to be, there is a lot of logs, right? But we can check for last modify, and this is going to be the last log that is coming here. If I go to CloudTrail, I need to make time because of the delays I told you. This is not something that we are going to see right now. But if I go directly to the CloudTrail console, we are going to see that the log is logging, right? Besides we change the policy, CloudTrail doesn't know that it's not logging to Brazil, right? if we try to check Garduti, we are going to see that if there is a notification, well, luckily there is no notifications. Garduti didn't detect us. Even though I take the time to disable it, it didn't generate a notification. There is nothing here. And if I go to Datadog, we can see that logs from USIS1 start coming again. But if I go and search for region, we can remove everything. Well, we can try to remove everything. Okay. And as you can see, we don't have logs from Brazil. So we don't have logs from Brazil. CloudTrail doesn't know that we are not monitoring Brazil. Garduti doesn't know that we disable monitoring in Brazil. Datadog keeps getting logs from other sources, and if we don't have rules from monitoring in Brazil, there is nothing much we can do. So yeah, that's how complicated it is to manipulate all the different components that a detection strategy is applied in AWS. No, it's not the presentation. Another thing. So yeah, what can we do to prevent this? Well, this is the important part. We need to be aware of regional services, and we need to apply the same level of strength to our controls, no matter what region is enabled. If we are not going to use a region, we need to disable that. We need to generate anti-forensic controls. If we have detected what are the parts of our detection strategy that are vulnerable, the S3 bucket, the CloudWatch rule, the CloudWatch logs, the logs are coming, we need to generate detection rules that are checking for those places, but in a way that is decentralized of the SIEM. What I usually do is to generate a Lambda that is monitoring the environment and is not depending for the log to arrive to the SIEM that is monitoring the event bridge, and is not named in a obvious way, right? And we can also implement cross-region and cross-account Lambdas that can assume roles and monitoring and breaking the account isolation part. So if I got access to an IAM user that is in one account, for me it's harder to move to the security control that is in another region. So again, this is the most important slide because here are the delays that attackers can take advantage of, and that we need to be aware as defensive engineers to understand that our detection rules maybe are not enough. So yeah, that would be it. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Hello. It was a very good presentation, thank you. I work with this kind of things, not AWS specifically, but log infrastructure. So is it possible to have like several people approving changes to these packet policies, or is there always just one user?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes, you could. The good practice would be like to have a pipeline. Well, all the changes in an account are done with an IAM role. That role is part of a GitHub automation, and it works with infrastructure as code. But that's magic. You know, most of the time it's like, yes, that's the good practice. That's what AWS tell us to do. But most of the time it ends up like, no, we need to apply this hotfix. The DevOps needs to be admin, or the security team needs to have a role for response or whatever. So what you say is what should happen, and I think like more mature companies can achieve that. And it's a time like it's a thing of maturity of how the practice is going. But at the same time, you have this problem that most or a lot of companies that are onboarding in AWS mostly are startups that had only a one-man army team, and they productivize their POCs, and it takes more time for them to achieve that level of maturity that you are referring. But yes, that would be like the best solution from a governance perspective, right?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.